So OnePlus has just launched a sack full of shiny new tech, including 2 fresh new smartphones which won't absolutely skint you. First up, there's the Nord 5, which swaggers onto the mid-range scene, boasting some quality camera hardware and a slick OxygenOS experience for just £399. And there's also the Nord CE5, a more affordable alternative starting at 299 GBPs, which leaves you a nice big wodge of cash to spend on whatever you like, be it whiskey, rye, or maybe you're more of a bourbon fan. But what sacrifices will you have to make if you snaffle yourself the more budget-friendly Nord CE5, and which one is best for you? Well, I've had my Sims stuck inside both of these dirty devils now, so here's my full side-by-side comparison and review, and for more on the latest and greatest tech, please do poke subscribe and ding that notifications bell. Cheers! Alright, so stick them side by side and you might struggle to tell the Nord CE5 from the regular Nord 5. CE5 is here on the left, Nord 5 on the right. There's practically no difference between them size-wise. The Nord 5 is a spider's scrotum bigger than the CE5 at 6.83 inches versus 6.77 inches. But we're basically talking the same dimensions here, as the CE5 has slightly chunkier bezels. Only slightly though, they are still pretty slender. And if you flip them around, you'll see that both the Nord 5 and the CE5 sport a very similar design. Simple and streamlined are 2 adjectives that could certainly be hoyed at this pair, as well as bloody boring if you're not being quite so generous. They're certainly inoffensive, and hey, at least OnePlus went with a matte finish so they don't get very smudgy or grotty. Those corners are slightly more curved on the Nord 5, but the easiest way to tell them apart is of course the camera bump. It's a bigger one here on the Nord 5 because you've got that integrated flash. Whereas on the Nord CE5 it's kind of buggered off to the side a bit. It wants nothing to do with the camera bump. And I can relate to that. It's kind of like I'm the camera bump and the flash is the rest of my family. You can grab the Nord 5 in a selection of 3 different colours, this here Phantom Grey, otherwise Dry Ice or Marble Mist. But slightly less choice with the Nord CE5, just the pair, Black Infinity, which is just a poncy way of saying black, or again, that marbly effort. And the marble model certainly has a bit more going on for it, it's a bit more interesting than the other colours, although naturally it won't be to everyone's taste. Now, unfortunately, those edges are just plastic on both the Nord 5 and the Nord CE5. OnePlus hasn't gone for the more premium metal option. You've apparently got Gorilla Glass around back on both, although OnePlus hasn't confirmed which version at the time I shot this video, so I'll add that to the video description. But so far, touch wood, after a couple of weeks of raw dogging it, no scratches, scuffs or nicks to speak of. And around front you do have a pre-installed screen protector. And both phones are IP65 splash and dust resistant, so they can cope with getting rather moist, but don't go actually dropping them in a bathtub or a sink or anything like that. It wouldn't like that very much at all. Now, bugger all surprises when it comes to the actual software running on these things is of course good old OxygenOS version 15. And OnePlus is offering 4 years of OS updates and 6 years of security patching, so you are basically covered until like 2030, and let's face it, if the apocalypse still hasn't happened by then, I'll be personally disappointed. Of course, they may be running the same software, but there are differences in the overall experience, the main one being the complete lack of a plus key on the Nord CE5. Now, the plus key here on the Nord 5 is essentially the replacement for that old iconic alert slider. Slightly controversial move, but you can once again hold this in to cycle between the silent, ring and vibrate modes. Or alternatively, you can customize this to fulfill various other needs. You can slap it on Do Not Disturb, you can have it fast launching the torch, the camera, the recorder, AI stuff like translate, etc. Actually, I say etc, but that's actually your bloody lot. There's very limited functionality so far. But limited it may be, it's still better than the Nord CE5, which has bugger all. No plus key, no alert slider. You just have to pull down the old control center and manually set Do Not Disturb or ring mode, vibrate mode, etc. And some other wee irritations here on the Nord CE5 as well. So for instance, it claims it has an always on display setting, but this is pretty basic compared with the Nord 5. There's no seamless classic options, and if you go into display settings, as you can see there, you can't actually keep the always on display always on on the Nord CE5. So unfortunately, after just a few seconds, it will bugger right off. You'll have to tap that screen in order to get it back on again. And you'll spy a few other wee differences if you go through the settings one by one, but most of the big features are the same. The likes of the gaming mode seems to be identical on both. You've got good old Zen space as well. Of course, the storage option's slightly different on these phones as well. The OnePlus Nord CE5 kicks off with just 128 gigs in its base version, whereas that's doubled for the Nord 5, 256 gigs. You can hoy more money at OnePlus to get even more storage in there. However, while the OnePlus Nord 5 has a double-sided SIM tray, there's only space in there for SIM cards, no micro SD memory card support. And that is something that the OnePlus Nord CE5 does actually offer. You've got a, again, double-sided SIM tray, and this time SIM 2 can be replaced with micro SD. But sod all support for eSIM with either of these OnePlus Nord phones, which is a bit of a letdown. The old eSIM proven very handy indeed if you do a lot of traveling. You want to just grab yourself a local eSIM instead of messing around actually grabbing a physical SIM card. And quite a few differences when it comes to the display tech. So you've got a 6.77-inch AMOLED panel on the OnePlus Nord CE5 versus the 6.83-inch Swift OLED panel here on the regular Nord 5. You've got crispy contrast on both, full HDR10 streaming support in services like Netflix. However, while the Nord CE5 sports a Full HD Plus resolution, that's boosted to a 1.5K resolution for the Nord 5, and you can tell the difference if you stick them side by side. Greater clarity, especially when you're checking out photos, etc. here on the Nord 5, those finer details really shining through. But the visual quality is still strong if you're just kicking back with a few games or a bit of movie action. You do have the exact same color modes on these phones, but the Nord 5 does appear to spaff out slightly bolder, more vibrant colors on the default Vivid mode versus the Nord CE5. It's certainly an eye pleaser if you like poppy, slap you in the face images. But as I say, completely customizable in those display settings. You've got the same Pro mode, so you can get a bit of display P3 action on the go. But both are certainly bright enough so you can clearly see what is going on outdoors, even on a sunshiny day. You've got high PWM dimming if you're sensitive to a bit of OLED flicker. And they both support high refresh, of course, but this maxes out at 120Hz on the Nord CE5, whereas it's boosted to 144Hz for the OnePlus Nord 5. Quite handy if you've got any supported games. And both phones support a bit of the old Aqua Touch as well, so they are pleasingly responsive even when they are quite moist. But when it comes to the audio, a vast chasm of difference between the two, because the OnePlus Nord CE5 makes do with a basic bog standard mono speaker setup versus the stereo speaker arrangement of the Nord 5. So for instance, here is the OnePlus Nord CE5 playing a crap YouTube video. Let's max out the volume, see what we got.
Welcome my lovelies to the TechSpert's 7th anniversary shindig.
And then compare with the Nord 5.
And good timing, because the party is well and truly kicking off. Mr. Wangsock just punched out Kevin from HR, and I myself am just a single Bacardi breezer away from losing the power of sight.
Now the OnePlus Nord CE5 tries to make up for its mono speaker deficiencies by basically being loud as f***. Unfortunately, the clarity takes a massive hit when you do boost up that volume and everything sounds tinny and crap. Certainly the audio quality, while not quite as loud here on the OnePlus Nord 5, is considerably better. And a bit of a difference in performance as well. The Nord CE5 powered by MediaTek's Dimensity 8350 Apex chipset, and that's swapped out in the Nord 5 for Qualcomm's Snapdragon 8S Gen 3. And they both come with 8 gigs of RAM as standard. They can boost that to 12 gigs on the OnePlus Nord 5, and that is the model that I'm reviewing. Now the everyday experience is buttery smooth on both these phones, in no small part thanks to OxygenOS. When it comes to gaming, there is a clear difference between the two. So for instance, playing Wuthering Waves with maxed out graphic settings, certainly a much smoother experience on the OnePlus Nord 5. Where you'll see only the occasional wee judder and dip in that frame rate. Whereas on the OnePlus Nord CE5, even on the regular graphic settings, you will see quite a few judders here and there. And if you boost the visual settings all the way up, that frame rate does drop quite significantly and rather regularly. You know, the likes of Wuthering Waves and Genshin Impact still perfectly playable here on the OnePlus Nord CE5. You'll just have to limit your expectations a bit and put up with the occasional bit of sludginess. And both phones can get rather toasty with an intensive bit of gaming as well, despite the fact you've got a massive vapor chamber crammed into the pair of them. As for the battery tech, well, identical in this pair. You've got a 5200 mAh capacity cell stuffed into both the Nord CE5 and the Nord 5. And despite the fact you've got completely different chipsets and completely different display tech and everything, I found the battery life pretty similar on them both. You will get slightly longer battery life out of the Nord CE5 if you're literally just watching a video that you've downloaded on the pair of them over and over and over again. And that is assuming you've activated high resolution mode in the display settings on the OnePlus Nord 5, but you can get hours and hours of screen on time with either of these bad boys. A full day of intensive use on a single charge, no worries, and that's including plenty of camera play, lots of online video, chatting shenanigans, Android audio streaming, the works. Although if you are just non-stop gaming on the likes of Wuthering Waves, where you can expect both the Nord 5 and the Nord CE5 to die a horrible death after about 3.5 hours. The good news then at least is you've got 80-watt SuperVOOC charging with the Nord 5 and the Nord CE5, so they both power back up to full again in a jiffy, although there is subtle support for wireless charging. And so my lovelies, let's conclude this hopefully not completely rubbish OnePlus Nord 5 and CE5 comparison with a squint at the old camera tech. And on paper the camera tech sounds very similar. You've got a 50 megapixel primary shooter on both, but it is the Sony LYT700 here on the Nord 5, whereas the Nord CE5 uses the older LYT600. While both also offer up a basic 8 megapixel ultra-wide angle shooter. And as with the displays, colours once again appear slightly warmer and bolder in photos shot on the Nord 5. The CE5 tends to brighten images with greater enthusiasm, which makes for a more iPhone-y style image instead. And I found that the Nord 5 also generally produced sharper looking snaps. So personally for me, the Nord 5 is the winner hands down, but of course which one you prefer will come down to your own personal tastes. Typical YouTube cop-out there. And the actual camera app, pretty much an identical experience on both of these. You've got the same set of toggles and features, including, yes, a dedicated Pro mode, which has a lot of the same features, including a good bit of focus peaking action, but unfortunately you can only shoot RAW format here on the Nord 5. There is no RAW option on the Nord CE5. You of course have that dedicated portrait mode, and then if you flick to more you do have a high res mode in both as well, so you can capture photos at the full 50 megapixel resolution as long as the lighting conditions aren't too crap. And a couple of extra bits here on the Nord 5, including a long exposure mode. And of course, as is very much on vogue these days, you've got a bit of AI photo editing action with both as well. Basically the same set of features. So for instance, the AI recompose, which can just help to crop in towards your subject a bit and just reframe everything so it's a bit nicer. And you've also got AI detail boost as well, which can just make everything look a little bit finer, a little bit less fuzzy at times. And in the before and after, you can see it does make a slight difference. As for the video chops, well, both the Nord CE5 and the Nord 5 can capture 4K resolution Ultra HD footage at up to 60 frames per second. And both the OnePlus Nord CE5 and the OnePlus Nord 5 do a respectable job of shooting your everyday home movies. The visual clarity and everything pretty strong, of course, at that 4K Ultra HD level. The stabilization's pretty good. The audio pickups, fine. Nice and clear if you're actually shooting the video, providing a bit of commentary. It can peter out quite quickly when it's actually somebody talking who's facing the lenses. And then last up, you've got a basic 16 megapixel selfie shooter here on the OnePlus Nord CE5 that is upgraded to a 50 megapixel effort here on the OnePlus Nord 5. So you can capture yourself at 4K resolution, again at up to 60 frames per second using the Nord 5. That is limited to full HD resolution at 60 frames per second here on the Nord CE5. And certainly the Nord 5 better across a range of conditions for those selfie shenanigans, but both pretty capable when it comes to the likes of portrait shots. And there you have it, my lovelies. That in a tasty wee nutshell is how the OnePlus Nord CE5 and OnePlus Nord 5 stack up. And as you can see, quite a lot of advantages if you do spunk out that extra 100 quid for the Nord 5. You got upgrades to the performance, to the camera tech, and lots of features packed in there, like that fresh new Plus key, which do enhance the overall experience, even if the Plus key, for instance, isn't quite ideally implemented just yet. That said, the Nord CE5 does have a couple of advantages of its own, including expandable storage and the fact that you've got an extra 100 £100 in your back pocket, so you can bugger off down the boozer and have a jolly good time. So which one are you more tempted by? It'd be great to hear your thoughts down in the comments below, or perhaps you think they're both a massive pile of pants. Check out my full OnePlus Nord 5 review, which should be live right now as you are viewing this. The Nord CE5 review will be coming soon. In the meantime, please do subscribe and ding that notifications bell for more on the latest and greatest tech, and have yourselves a ruddy, wonderful rest of the week. Cheers everybody, love you!